Thank you, Matt. The format for this meeting is a 10-minute speaker, our secretary's announcements, a coffee and snack break, and our main speaker. Our first speaker tonight is Merrill.
Merrill alcoholic. Merrill. That's my buddy. Thank you, Sippy. High praise when you hear him echo you. He has Tourette's syndrome. It's sad. We should all pray for him. But I do get it. I do. Yeah. You get a sense of humor. I saw a lot of newcomers. Welcome, or in their first 30 days or whatever it is, 60, 90, whatever. You're new for a while. It's just that simple. I was new for a while. Okay, 10 minutes. Where's my timer there? How am I doing? Am I done yet? Okay. All right, here it goes. All right, what it was like. I can keep it simple. All right, that's probably the best. Just how to put it in a simple fashion is always difficult. Let's see what it was like. Well, let's see. I drank like a fish. I drank, and I drank for the reasons that most of us drink, and that is to get rid of the shame and the horror of actions that we've done to other people, places, and things. And I couldn't face it. I couldn't face myself. How, I asked myself, am I going to be able to like you, to be your friend, to work with you, or more importantly, cohabitate with you? I'll get to that in a little later, but all of that above, if I can't like and live with myself. And some of the behavior and actions that I've done, I don't need to go into a lot of detail. It's pretty easy to spot when a person's drank too much. I was wrestled down in a hotel in Florida for the Fontainebleau Hotel. It wasn't any ordinary hotel. Of course not. I couldn't have ordinary in my life. Well, I was prancing through the lobby, screaming, quoting Shakespeare at the top of my lung. That was one incident. The other one was, I woke up one morning and I looked over and my date was peeing standing up. What in God's name had gone wrong? Now, you would have thought, okay, listen, don't laugh. I mean, the dude had beautiful breasts, okay? I was drunk out of my mind. He also had additional equipment that I wasn't really interested in, but I was concerned. I was concerned. By that time, I had gone through, I was on my fourth wife. And I went to New York and picked up another wife. No, that's not true. It's my fourth wife. There's my beautiful wife there. That is my fifth wife. I have trouble. Her name's Cheryl. I call her the love of my life. She calls me her current husband. I never ever learned to drink like a gentleman. I ran from everything that presented a conflict to me. And when I got here, believe me, I was willing. And that's the magic word, in my opinion, willingness. If you're not willing, this isn't going to mean anything to you. If you don't want something to change in your life, my God, go to the next bar and drink one on me. Take me with you. I'll pay for it. You need to be willing in order to get this program. That's been my experience. It's just whether you don't get the first, as Sippy says, a little Sippy wisdom here. This first step, right? We admitted to ourselves we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. That's it. If you don't believe that to be true, turn it into a question. Am I willing to admit that I'm, that's really what it is. Turn it into a question. And if you can answer the question positively, you're in the right place. Hooray! Because I'll tell you what, your life is going to change like no other. It's just amazing how your life changes with this program. So I went on anyway. I thought, well, maybe I am gay. Maybe all these women haven't worked. Maybe I am gay. And I went and tried to find out. And they said, the people who are educated and knew of these matters told me, Mr. Harrington, after 6 months, I guarantee you, sir, you're not gay. Your problem isn't homosexuality. Your problem is you don't like people very much. Wait a minute. It was like somebody had taken a shaft of lightning and shoved it through the center of me. It was my first genuine spiritual experience. It was the truth. Hear the truth, and the truth shall set you free. No, I didn't like people very much. I didn't know. I thought I was a charming individual. Always fashionable. Had creases in my Levi's. Always wear the latest fashion. Not tonight. I was just asked 10 minutes ago to be a 10-minute speaker. Whatever it was. Thank you, Chris, and I appreciate that. Let me acknowledge Chris. God bless his heart. He was a little worried about anything longer than 10 minutes. I said, "Don't worry. Thank you. I'll make it 10 minutes. I can stutter through 10 minutes, but I did. I came here a wreck. I was a mess, and all the marriages, everything. I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't do it anymore. I was brought to my knees, if you will." It's Marianne. I think it was Marianna Williamson. I don't want to get into this whole thing, but the reality is, go away. It says it wants my face ID. Nobody ever wanted my face before. This is okay. Willpower. Here's the biggie. The fact that you yourself have anything figured out makes little or no difference to any of this. No matter how smart this is on self-will and willpower. This isn't going to work, folks. Self-will and willpower doesn't work. It says little or no evidence to any of this. No matter how smart you are or how much work you've done on yourself, you alone cannot outsmart the psychic force of compulsion and addiction. Can't do this alone. Ain't going to happen. If you could, you would have by now. Which is why you're here. Oh, dear bleak. You aren't going to tell anybody else, but you're looking for help. And we're here to give it for you. We have it right here, Right on that back table, I think there's a big book. That's where the program can be found, by the way. These rooms are kind of fun. We sort of give you our experience, strength, and hope. But the actual program itself is in that big book, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. At least that's where I found it. If you could, you would have done so by now. For this problem, entrenched and pernicious as it is, you need spiritual forces to help you. For this, you need God. It says that simple, God. We have one here, but it's of your own understanding. We don't, in other words, it could be anyway. It could be the Hebrew God. It could be the Buddhist God. It could be the China God, or whatever God you choose. It could be no God at all. It could be a doorknob. It could be the program. It could be your sponsor. Doesn't matter. Get one. Here's the deal. Nothing's worked for you. You think you're in control and you have power? No siree. Better start believing in something other than yourself. That's the suggestion. How am I doing? 2 minutes. 2 minutes, okay. I'm running. Okay. So let me get to the wrap here. Really the end of it is now I have 30 years of sobriety. Thank you. What I actually have is 1 day at a time. That's the beauty of this program. We only do it 1 day at a time. I've been married successfully to a woman for longer than, if the total put together, I've been married for about 60 years. But unfortunately, it wasn't just one woman. But I've got 7 years going on, and I met her when I came into the program and immediately hooked up. Another conquest, I thought. We men, that's one of the biggest things that this program has given me. It's given me a new admiration and respect for women. I just wanted it desperately. Because what I was missing out on wasn't the sex, wasn't the drugs, rock and roll, pleasure, if you will. What I was missing out on was the happiness and joy of having a person in my life that I could say I honestly loved. And love is being proud of the way you need another person, place, or thing. Proud for the right reasons. And I'm proud of the way I need my wife. I'm proud of the way I need my program. And more importantly, I'm proud of the way I need you, because I can't do this by myself. Angel, translated from the Latin, means messenger. And every one of you in this room have a magic message for me, and I'm incredibly grateful to hear it. Chris, thanks so much for asking me. Thank you, folks, for listening.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, our main speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Adam T.
Adam, alcoholic. Want to thank the group. Thank you for inviting me to come talk tonight. It's always an honor and a privilege to be asked to participate in Alcoholics Anonymous. Ultimately, it's a responsibility to give back what was so freely given to me. Welcome to people that are new. You know, if you're trying AA again, if you don't want to be here tonight, if you don't think AA will work for you. I didn't get to Alcoholics Anonymous because I had a bad weekend. You know, I had a couple of bad decades. And for me, like a lot of us, eventually this becomes a matter of life and death. I mean, every meeting has their perpetual newcomer, especially if you live in a smaller community. You know, we see that lost soul recycling through the rooms. I used to live down here. I live on the west side. I stood up in my area for 17 years as a newcomer. I mean, it was horrible. I mean, we know the drill, right? I had so many chips and key tags, I could have played poker with them, right? I remember one secretary saying, give them back. You know, and I did that walk of shame over and over and over again. And looking back at that experience now, I thank God for the unconditional love of the old-timers. A lot of the old-timers even here that watch me go through that. And they would say stuff to me like, don't even bother taking chips. Just sit in the back. Shut up. No, but in a loving way, right? But they made it really clear to me, and if you're new, I hope you hear this. They made it really clear to me that if and when I was ready, because somehow they could see it. Those old-timers could see it by my fidgety nature, my attitude, my lack of interest. They had the wisdom to see by my attitude that maybe it wasn't right now. But those old-timers made it really clear to me that if and when I was ready, that the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous would always be open to a drunk like me. And I think looking back at that experience now, next to my parents, Alcoholics Anonymous is the closest thing to unconditional love that a drunk like me will ever experience. No matter how many lives I destroyed, how many people I burned, how many jobs I lost, how many cars I wrecked, how many hearts I broke, how many despicable, shameful things I did. And if you are, in fact, an alcoholic, it's the most shameful thing in the world to be the family drunk. Especially if you come from a large family like I do. You know, my mom had 3 sisters, my dad had 4 brothers, and she told them everything. Right? You know, one more rubber room, one more institution, one more overdose, one more 5150. Happy birthday, Dad. I'm in jail. I mean, does anybody here relate to being paid not to come home on the holidays? I mean, please, that was my life. And it's funny because, you know, I was a straight A student. I was a little kid, top of all my classes. I was an only child. I didn't come from a broken home. My mom and dad loved me. I mean, you know the love that parents have. You ever see those parents outside the elementary schools? Probably right here. You know, they block traffic. You want to shoot them. But my mom and dad had all these hopes and dreams for me. And to watch those 2 souls, to watch my mom and dad literally watch me burn my life to the ground. To the point where eventually she had sold the family property. My mother sold the family property, moved, and didn't leave a forwarding address when I was in an institution. That's where I left her. That's the annihilation of everything worthwhile that Bill Wilson talks about. That high price we pay for this despicable low quality of life. All that shame, and despite all of that, the doors of AA have always been open to people like me. If I lived to be 100 years old, I could never pay Alcoholics Anonymous back for the love and kindness that, you know what, some of you people have shown me Not all. If you like everybody in AA, you know what it means? It means you're probably not going to enough meetings. My sponsor said, Adam, you really don't have to like anyone in particular here, but you will learn to love people in general. You will learn to love people in AA you don't even like. And it's been my experience over a long period of time watching people come in and out and watching people die that I've come to love people here, despite all the differences, despite all the difficulties. You know, this is for a lot of us an absolute matter of life and death. And what happened to me eventually is I started coming to meetings loaded, drunk. Now, what's so interesting about AA 2023, if you actually see a drunk person in an AA meeting these days, people say stuff like, oh my gosh, what's he doing here? I mean, it's ironic, right? And I don't want to bash the therapeutic community. I saw the druggy buggy, you know. But, you know, for me, treatment now is a $35 billion a year industry. It's grown up about AA, right? Right next to annuities in the Wall Street Journal. And for me, treatment would swoop me up in my most desperate moments, throw me into yoga class. Like, really? That's going to fix it? Craft hour. I'm making belt buckles and bongs. Nature walks, please. I'm walking to 7-Eleven, getting a big gulp cup, filling it up with liquor, putting a little Coca-Cola on top, walking into the late night Hollywood candlelight meeting, doing some of my best sharing. And then I start going through institutions, and it's funny because we have a chapter in the big book, the chapter to wise, if you care to read the book. And in the chapter to wise, it describes 4 types. And the 4th type of alcoholic that's described in the chapter to wise is the type of alcoholic that's been placed in one institution after another. Sound familiar? The type of alcoholic that typically drinks on his way home from the hospital. And in the 17 years that I recycled through Alcoholics Anonymous, in one of the biggest cities in the world, with 3,000 meetings, I still became that 4th type. By the time I finally got sober in AA, I'd gone through residential treatment for alcoholism 28 times. Right, not 28 days like the movie. This isn't Hollywood. 28 consecutive times, and I'm wearing that like some kind of badge of honor. I'm thinking that's what makes me an alcoholic. And I remember telling my sponsor, hey, I went through treatment 28 times. I was hoping that would like get rid of the guy, you know, loser. Go find someone that's willing. And he starts laughing and he says, Adam, going through treatment 28 times doesn't make you an alcoholic. And I thought, you're kidding. He says, no, it just means you paid $500,000 for a big book. And I didn't think that was funny. And I'm not going to start citing and quoting pages tonight out of the big book. But page 101 of the big book says any scheme that attempts to shield the alcoholic from temptation is doomed to failure. See, treatment was a great place to fatten me up for another run. Treatment has its rightful place in recovery. Even Bill Wilson had gone through treatment. If you ever wonder what all the treatment centers and religions do have in common, it's that they all send their drunks to us. Right? Dr. Silkworth, in the doctor's opinion, says we favor hospitalization or treatment for the alcoholic that's befogged or jittery. Treatment probably saved my life. Treatment might have somehow physically intervened and slowed me down. Some people don't go through treatment. It is not a prerequisite for Alcoholics Anonymous. But if you're like me, my experience is this: treatment never solved the problem. And as an alcoholic, like a lot of us, I always thought the problem was liquor. I thought it was alcohol. And I remember someone in AA saying to me, Adam, if alcohol's your problem, that drink, that shot glass, that 12-pack, that little glass of Chardonnay, right? If that's your problem, you're probably not an alcoholic. And then he paused, and in the very next breath he says to me, and if you are in fact an alcoholic, the type that's described in the doctor's opinion, in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, your problem isn't alcohol. And I'm like, what? I mean, it went right over my head. It was like some kind of cruel riddle. I drank over that for years. But what happened to me is I got around a group of big book literalists. This is what happened to me. I got around a group of AA big book enthusiasts, people in Alcoholics Anonymous that took the statements in the big book, turned them into questions, directed the questions at me. Very simple ideas, like was I incapable of being honest with myself when it came to alcohol? Did I drink because I liked the effect produced by alcohol? Duh, that's a no-brainer, right? How about this? Was I restless, irritable, and discontent by nature? Was that my natural state before my lips ever touched alcohol? Very powerful question. Was my greatest obsession that somehow, someday, I would control and enjoy my drinking at the same time? And did I pursue that illusion, meaning just out of reach to the gates of insanity and death? And as I went through those considerations, if you're like me, what happened is for the first time I saw the truth. And the most obvious truth, what we call the external unmanageability, was clear as a bell. From the time I was in middle school, I'm in 8th grade, I'm already pissing in my pants. I'm already drooling on my desk. I'm already passed out under the bleachers. Every time I touched alcohol, I overshot the mark. My nickname in 8th grade was Space Cadet. I couldn't find homeroom. I mean, really, people are picking high schools. I'm already picking rehabs, right? But if you're new tonight, alcoholism comes in people. It doesn't come in bottles or 6-packs or 12-packs or kegs or shot glasses or XYZ. Alcoholism comes in people. And the greater aspect of this spiritual illness, as Bill Wilson describes it, centering in my mind, if going through the considerations in the big book shows me anything at all, it shows me that an alcoholic of my type, an alcoholic of this type, cannot really live without alcohol. Not successfully, not happily. In part, what it really means for me to be an alcoholic, if I'm honest about my relationship with liquor, is that I seem to have a mind that will consistently take me back to that first drink. Every time I get released from an emergency room, a hospital, a fancy Malibu treatment center, right? Men's Central Jail, 5743, roll it up. It's amazing to me. Like Merrill said, I'm sitting in a cell, casually reading a novel, not a cloud on the horizon. And I hear that number, 5743, roll it up. And I have this visceral compulsion in me that is so powerful that suddenly I can't even stop at the release module for my property. This compulsion in me is so powerful. And I come to an AA meeting and these well-meaning people say stuff to me like, well, don't drink no matter what. And I'm like, what happened to the top of page 24 where it says every alcoholic passes through this state where even the strongest desire is absolutely no avail? It says my willpower becomes virtually non-existent. Sound familiar? So when I hear don't drink no matter what, there's a translation. Go to meetings no matter what. Work steps no matter what. Maintain commitments no matter what. Develop the discipline of steps 10, 11, and 12 no matter what. And just like the doctor's opinion says, suddenly I am easily able to control my desire for alcohol. What a powerful thing that is. If you're like me, all of my life I was one decision away from a drink, maybe 2 decisions away from prison. And today, between me and that decision, there's a whole world called recovery. It's about people like you. It's about the rooms of AA. It's about this way of life. It's about a design for living, a roadmap to spiritual success, if you will. For a lot of us, it's about this mystery we call God, which in many ways is really the product of these seemingly unrelated actions. If anything at all, it's a deep and effective spiritual experience, but it is something that stands between me and that substance, me and that drink, that is so powerful. And I don't want to be disrespectful to the therapeutic community, but we hear it a lot. AA has no evidence-based results. Really? Go to a world convention. Check out 85,000 people. Because what you're seeing right here is a microcosm of what this really is. When you see 85,000 people converging on a random city every 5 years, and by the way, you can't do it with insurance. Actually, you have to buy a plane ticket, get a conference ticket, get a hotel room, right? Get a rent-a-car. I mean, when they do the out-of-towners at a world convention, it's like the United Nations. You will see every country represented. It takes 2.5 hours. And you feel the power of that. And by the way, when you see that and you see every one of those people that have made the effort, listen to the word effort, to come to one of those events, you'll see a beautiful daughter, a son, a father, a mother, a brother, a sister. You'll see a world of people. And the families behind those people will tell you that Alcoholics Anonymous is the most powerful thing in their loved ones' lives. I mean, a lot of times we don't realize, even now, the big book stands at the top 88 books in the U.S. Library of Congress, the top 88 books that shaped America. It's still there. So what does it really mean? What does it really mean to be a drunk? It somehow means for me that I have this mind that will continue to take me back to alcohol. I don't have a choice. It's almost like my default program, like on a computer. And I live in Santa Monica. I grew up there. You know a few people from there. And Santa Monica is now called Silicon Beach, right? And the reason we call it that is because we got about 250 tech companies that have taken over that part of the city. You know, Yahoo, Snapchat, Google, they're all there. And a lot of the guys that work for those companies are programmers. They speak Python and Java, and they create apps, and they do coding, right? They're very smart. Here's some math for the really smart people. Potential plus alcoholism equals 0. It's kind of like the quadratic formula balancing on 0, right? So, I've got the privilege of sponsoring a lot of these guys, really smart guys. And we talk about the language that Bill Wilson uses in 1939 and how really advanced it was, because we use the word program today all the time, common vernacular. One of the definitions of the word program is right behind me. It is a sequential set of instructions with a purpose designed to do what? Bring about a result. Now listen to the parallel language. What do you do when you get a corrupt file on a computer? Well, it's obvious. You install a recovery disk. And the function of that disk is to restore that program, just like the second step, to an earlier point in the process, the original self. The uncorrupted self. It never occurred to me. 10 and 11 invariably become like a viral scan. If I follow these very simple instructions, what happens in 10 is I become mindful, I become accountable, I become transparent, I become visible. I'm able to see where I paint the red flags green. I'm able to navigate around the drama. I'm able to match calamity with serenity. I develop what's called spiritual fitness. I bookend my day when I retire at night and upon awakening. I'm asking God. That word ask means a prayer. That prayer 6 times in that part of the book. To be divorced from self-seeking motives. It never occurred to me when Wilson says principles before personalities. It was our founder's future hope that these spiritual instructions, these guidelines, might have more impact than, I hate to say, the untethered hysterical opinions that we sometimes encounter in the fellowship that have nothing to do with AA. And I love the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love hanging out, going to the kettle, going to the birthdays, the weddings. Right? Even the funerals are fun, right? Sorry to say it. We get together, we hang out, we have coffee. See you later. But see, the fellowship is but one element. In the second chapter, it is but one element in the powerful cement that binds us. And there's a warning there. It said the fellowship would have never held us together as we're now joined. I mean, I had a big family. And all the sisters and cousins. My mom would have parties with 300 people. I grew up with tons of really smart people, a lot of PhDs. It was useless to me. For me, the fellowship gives me enthusiasm. It gives me inspiration. It gives me encouragement. It gives me hope, brotherly love. Some people actually find relationships and employment here, right? But if you unleash a character like me into a large group of people like this without guiding principles, you know what happens? My character defects thrive. I'm working the room. I actually get sicker in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous without guiding principles. And what that looks like, if you're new, is somehow I become more separate, more different, and more alone. And if you haven't heard that terminology, what that actually means is separated from God. It means different than every single person here. We call that terminal uniqueness. A lot of us have heard that, right? And alone. You know that loneliness, that ache in the heart of every one of us that really has nothing to do with the proximity or closeness of other people. That loneliness at the core of my spirit. In fact, the bigger the crowd, the more alone I am. That loneliness at the core of my soul that I can't talk about when I hit that pillow at night. If you have that like I do, you know what that is? My inability to connect. And you put a couple of drinks in me, I'm calling people from 5th grade saying, I love you. God, I go right into amends. Come on, get me loaded. I'm at one with the universe. I'm standing on the roof of my building howling at the moon. It's the greatest experience I've ever had. That powerful experience was so significant that it changed the entire trajectory of my life. The complete direction of my life changed. Separate from God, different than every single person here, and alone. And right next to those 3 fundamental ideas, parallel to that, there are 3 pillars in recovery. The first is to be protected by some kind of God. The second, to be accepted by self. And the third, to be connected to a community. That first piece, and you hear it in A Vision for You. Every time we read A Vision for You, abandon yourself to God as you understand God, right? 1 through 3. Admit your faults to him and your fellows, 4 through 7. Clear away the wreckage of your past. You abandon a ship, you think you can get back on? That all or nothing proposition they're asking me to do there? You go to the ocean with a cup, you get a cup full of water. Go to the ocean with your whole life. And you hear it every time we read chapter 5 when we kind of zone out and want to text. It says we ask for his care and protection with complete abandon. Protected by God, accepted by self, 4 through 7. What that means is I no longer need internal or external validation. I develop what's called an internal locus of control. You can look that up on your phone after the meeting. It's a clinical term. No, it's very powerful what it actually means. And the third piece, to be connected to a community. Protected by God, accepted by self, connected to a community. And I go from being the weakest link in my family. And I'm talking about generations of suicide, mental illness, alcoholism, drug addiction, genetics and dysfunction echoing through the ages, to 25 years later, the strongest link in that family. It is said, if you're new, when we talk about the view from the center of AA is entirely different than it is from the outside. You could fall off the edge. You can't fall off the middle. It is said the disease of alcoholism, and it's predicated by the word spiritual. The disease of alcoholism is the only disease, when treated, that will actually leave the sufferer in a better position than if they never had the disease. I'd have never believed that. I would have never believed it. When I heard people say, I'm a grateful alcoholic, I wanted to vomit. I couldn't understand how you could take this curse and turn it into a blessing. I couldn't understand it until I got around some people in AA that were on fire, that were chasing their dreams. A guy said to me, I remember we were standing outside this hospital at a meeting, and he looked at me and he goes, how free do you want to be, man? You want to be free enough to just survive this? So when people say, how you doing? You can say, I'm hanging in there. Like he goes, I'll buy you a drink just out of mercy. Or he said, do you want to be free enough to chase your dreams, to be able to have relationships that work, to learn how to navigate around the drama, to be able to stay in some kind of fit spiritual condition, to have a way of life, a design for living that really works? And I became attracted to it. I started to see that there were a group of people here that were doing something different. A lot of them were involved in service. They were doing things like H&I. They were going to book studies. They were going to step studies. And then they were taking that information back into the community and helping people. A very different kind of Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, if you sit in a chicken coop for 20 years, you're not going to become a chicken. I don't mean to be disrespectful. It's like, being in AA and not working at 12 steps, and we've all said this, is staying in a 5-star hotel and sleeping in the bathroom. And I suffered for so long with untreated alcoholism in abstinence because I didn't really understand what this was. And I look back at 17 years of failure, even in one of the largest groups in the world, and I see my defiance towards spiritual principles. And what that looks like if you're new, because the original manuscript said, rarely have we seen a person fail. We've all heard it, that's thoroughly followed our directions. Now, if you're like me, I don't like directions. Ask my girlfriend. I don't like being told not to do something I already don't want to do, right? I will argue with anybody about anything at any time. You tell me it's black, I'll tell you it's white. You tell me it's big, I'll tell you it's small. You tell me to go left, I'll go right with an attitude. Oh yeah, and then I'll blame you for eternity. That's why we say denial's an acronym. It stands for don't even notice I am lying. Think about it. You can tell an alcoholic, you can't tell him much. Oh, you don't believe it? Try sponsoring somebody. And what that means is you can lead me into the gates of hell, but you can't push me into heaven. That's why when he talks about attraction rather than promotion in the 11th tradition, what that meant to a drunk like me is eventually I'm going to come back to AA on my own terms. Not because sober living wants me to, not because my parole officer wants me to, not because DCSF thinks it's a good idea, right? I mean, where I live on the west side, everyone gets sober for what? The trust fund, right? Come on. Please, I know where I'm at. But you know what's funny? Hope doesn't matter to people like me. I grew up in Malibu. I know what it's like. Hope doesn't matter to me until I'm hopeless. Come on. You think hope matters to me when I got $1 million left in the bank, brand new truck, little boat down in the marina? Please. You wouldn't catch me dead at an AA meeting. Are you kidding me? And God doesn't matter to a drunk like me until my back's against the wall. And I know it like it was yesterday. I got shot in a little argument, went right through me. And I'm laying on this gurney, right? I got the paramedics there, 2 ambulances, and they got the little paddles over me. All I know is God. I mean, if you've ever been in a situation like that, right? There's only 2 things people cry for, mommy and God. Oh, come on. You get your head in the toilet every morning, puking your guts out with the dry heaves. Who prays more than drunks like us? Come on. You don't relate, you might be in the wrong room. I'm sorry. I'm not being divisive. But what's so interesting about that is Bill Wilson has this powerful white light experience in Bill's story. And on the very next page, because he's overwhelmed with the power of God, but on the very next page it says it was quickly blotted out by worldly clamors, most of which were within himself. I can remember standing in that surgeon's office, and he does an angiogram where he runs a cord through my groin, and he pumps this dye into my heart on a TV screen like this, and he said, it missed. I was drunk in an hour. I was so high, so fast. I went from God, I will do anything, watching my life flash before me in fear, to, I got to get out of here now. And he just shoved a tampon through the hole. He says, it'll heal from the inside out. And I was gone. So if you're new, there's a real difference between the act of surrender that gets the newcomer into AA over and over and over and over and over again, right? Calling every day to try to get a bed in rehab. Big difference between the act of surrender and the state of surrender that's keeping the old timers here. It's a completely different concept. It's kind of like watching a swan glide across a pond of still water. So beautiful, so effortless, so graceful. But you know what that little bird's doing under the water? He's paddling like hell. And if you're new, we have a chapter, right? Into action. Ever notice there's no chapter into feelings? Into thinking, please. I know the therapists hate it. They hate this part, right? But what happened to me, like a lot of us, is I became willing to take actions in Alcoholics Anonymous that I did not yet believe in, and those actions over a period of time changed my perception of reality. There it is. If there was a weight pile in the middle of this room and I drive iron every day for 2 hours, would I get strong? Absolutely. Does it matter how I feel? That triangle in front of this podium right here translates into 3 spiritual actions: recovery, unity, and service, contribute, belong, and learn. The more that I contribute, the more my spirit feels needed. The more that I belong, I stand at the door of that meeting every week and I say, hi, I'm Adam, hi, I'm Adam, hi, I'm Adam, hi, I'm Adam. It doesn't matter if I'm saying in my head, I hope you drink and die. I'm not that spiritual. But if I do that every week, you know what happens after a couple months? I will not be able to walk in this room without people coming up to me and saying, Adam, how are you, bro? It just works like that. To uncover, discover, and discard that which is blocking me from God, self, and others. In other words, my experience with AA is the more that I take these actions that I do not yet believe in, whether I believe it or not, the results will happen. So what happened to me? Thank God we don't look like our stories. I got to one more treatment center. I was 120 pounds, right? I stunk like urine. My fingers were dirty. You know how we look, right? I look like a concentration camp victim. You know, I'm in the rehab in my nightgown with my ass hanging out, right? Some of you guys were just there, right? And I'm judging the speaker. It's so funny how we're the only people that can be on the curb and still look down at the world. Right? Because it's a fancy rehab. I don't realize I'm homeless. I get 2 speeds, grandiose and comatose. Right? And I'm strutting around the detox bragging about Robin Brink's trucks. I finally did my 4-step. It was a bread truck. And it was empty. And I'm sitting there in the treatment center with my fellow associates, and this woman comes in on what's called an H&I panel, and she does her AA talk, and at the end of her talk, she looks us all up and down and she says, if I could give you all the gift of recovery, I wouldn't do it. And I looked at her, and I remember looking at my friend, and I said, what a bitch. No disrespect. And then she said something that would later change my life. She said, the reason I wouldn't give you the gift of recovery, the reason I wouldn't give it to you is because I wouldn't rob you of the journey. And if you're new, all these years later, I've come to understand that that journey to recovery, just like that journey to surrender, that each and every drunk has to walk is personal. If you're new, we can't give it to you. And I'll tell you right now, desperation and hopelessness are not the same. See, I didn't understand it till later that, you know what fixed desperation? $1,000 check from mommy. Desperation can be fixed. Hopelessness can't. When I'm sitting in $1 million house in Newport Beach on a piss-soaked mattress, and I have everything at my disposal, and I know the next drink's probably going to kill me, and I can't stop myself from taking it, that's a very different thing. A very different thing. And that gift of desperation, it's a great acronym for God, right? The gift of desperation. But I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be. I remember being 18, 19, 20. I was in these rooms as a teenager. And there weren't a lot of young people 30 years ago. And the old timers were like, you know what, kid, we spilled more than you drank. And we're like, you know what, Pops, we didn't spill any. That's why we got here sooner. Done enough YPA events, I know. But at the same time, there were a lot of kind old people here, old people that had wisdom. I was told, if you don't like the old timers in AA, don't worry about it. You'll never be one. Rough, because they had experience, strength, and hope. They'd walked through divorce. They'd walked through the death of a parent. They knew how to walk through this journey. It doesn't matter who's wrong. It doesn't matter who's right. It just matters who's left. And when I looked at drunks here with long-term recovery, again, that were chasing their dreams, that had relationships that worked, that learned how to navigate around the drama, that could talk like Merrill did so candidly about these things that we were so ashamed of, that now don't even matter to me. All that shit happened to a lot of us. How powerful that is, to be free of it all. See, alcoholism really is the only prison where the key's inside. And as cliche as that sounds, if the key was inside, I should have been able to get out on my own, but I couldn't. I had to let another person in. The three most powerful words at AA are, yeah, me too. I felt like that too. And I don't mean to be divisive, but if you're in a hot tub with a fifth of whiskey and 8-ball and a supermodel and daddy sends you to rehab, we don't expect you to be happy. I mean, has anybody ever been interrupted in the middle of a quart of whiskey? It's ridiculous. Just scored the 8-ball. They're taking me away in handcuffs. It's horrible. That's why we say my worst day sober is better than my best day drinking. You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. But my worst day sober is better than my last 5 years drinking, where the disease killed me every day and it wouldn't bury me. That gift of desperation is a great acronym for God, but for me, like a lot of us, there's another acronym. And what happens to a lot of us is we get to a place where our head can't get enough and my body can't take anymore. That's the kind of drunk I was. When my head can't get enough and my body can't take anymore, you know what God means? Grow or die. Then suddenly there's going to be a fork in the road where my hand's going to be forced. Where I have two alternatives. They're not choices. Go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness. We've all heard it, right? Of my intolerable situation. And the other alternative, accept spiritual help. Faced with alcoholic destruction or to live on a spiritual basis. These are not easy choices. I mean, ask a normie. Go over to Costco. You got jails, institutions, and death. Happy, joyous, and free. It's a no-brainer. You step over to my cell in Men's Central Jail, you ask me that question, I'm thinking, how about an alcoholic death? Right? Can I talk to my counselor, my therapist, my MFT, and get back to you on Monday? It's like ridiculous. I will justify, minimize, and rationalize my right to get loaded. The first half of step one, me defending my right to drink. The rest of the program, me defending my right to play God. And I never saw it. That's why we say God can't use a man or woman till they come to the end of themselves. Every one of those things. Father Martin said it, the four things that block a newcomer from recovery: wealth, health, youth, and brains. Every one of those could be a chapter. Every one of those is an obstacle that stops me from finding out what this is really about. the restoration to the original self. To have a servant's heart, to have a mind of a king, but to have the heart of a servant. That is what was asked of me in order for me to recover. It sounds humiliating, it's empowering. The most powerful thing that ever happened to me. That's why we say the longest trip for a drunk, my head to my heart. You know what the shortest trip? My knees to the ground. And when I got to that place, the magic happened. I became teachable. If you are new, I beg of you to find that part inside you that is teachable. Do this as an experiment. Do everything the book says up until that end of chapter 6 and start working with new people. Sit down and read them the book. The discovery of this process. There's a poem in Notre Dame. It says, I sought my God I could not see. I sought my soul I could not free. I sought my brother, and I found all three. This therapeutic value of one person, one drunk working with another, this idea that nothing ensures immunity from drinking more than intensive work with others, that powerful thing that we have here changed the trajectory of my entire life. I was thinking about this. There's this great poem in this rehab that I talk at. By the way, tomorrow, I don't know if I could say this from the podium, but the West Side's having their hospital and institution picnic at Veterans Park. It's going to be on the tape, whatever. Probably about 200 people there if you got nothing to do tomorrow. But there's a poem in this rehab. It says, watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. And if you're new and your destiny was to be in this room tonight, this isn't where people like us end up. This is where people like us come to start brand new lives. That's what this is. And what happened by doing these very simple actions, primarily steps 4 through 7, is it changed that path. It made me look, my will and my life, my thoughts and my actions on paper, admission, acknowledgement, and acceptance of these fundamental ideas, which in some way started to set me free. They started to set me free. I'll say it like this. If someone did to me what I did to myself, I hate to say this, but I would have killed them. If someone did to me what I did to others, I would have killed them. And then I come to AA, and you want me to pray to God? I didn't want God to find out where I was. I'd become bankrupt. I was bankrupt in those 3 primary relationships. If you look at the 12 steps by design, they remedy those 3 relationships. Steps 1 through 3, recreate and develop a relationship with God. 4 through 7, recreate and develop a relationship with self. Steps 8 and 9, recreate and develop a relationship with others. It's a very simple idea. 10 maintains, develops, and grows my relationship with self. 11 maintains, develops, and grows my relationship with this power, God. 12 maintains, develops, and grows my relationship with others. So coming out of this steps, a selfish, self-centered drunk like me is not only easily able to control my desire for alcohol, which is right out of the doctor's opinion, but for the first time in my life, I'm able to live in harmony with God, with self, and with others. There was a great spiritual teacher. He was asked, what's the most important thing of all your teachings? He said, love God with all thy heart, love thy neighbor as thyself. And you know what? If God scares you out of AA and you're a real drunk, don't worry about it. Booze will scare you back in. So in 1 through 3, I give it up. 4 through 7, I clean it up. 8 and 9, I make it up. 10, 11, and 12, I keep it up. Very simple idea. Einstein said, I would rather live my life pretending there's a God and finding out there isn't than live my life pretending there's no God and finding out there is. It's just easier to look at the kindness, look at the love, look at these ideas. Even the 7 deadly sins. When I look at pride, the virtue is humility, anger, self-control, lust, chastity, greed, charity, and so forth. I start to look at the virtues as I come out of this. And I start to live up to those ideas the best I can. You know, the guys I sponsor, I say, you had a daughter. What kind of man would you want your daughter to marry? It's always the same. Loving, compassionate, loyal, considerate. I mean, I'm in San Quentin doing a fist up with a guy that's like doing 4 life sentences, and it's the same. Loving, compassionate, loyal, considerate. The fundamental ideas within all of us. The question is, how are you treating God's daughters or God's sons? God's will is about kindness, being helpful, being supportive. It's all over the book. You don't see it in the 3rd step prayer and the 7th step prayer. They're saying the same thing. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help. So I'll close with a couple things. And I'm not bragging. I was at LAX a while back, and I'm at the airport. I'm at the gate. I'm dressed up. And this guy comes running up to me at the gate, and he's like, you don't remember me, do you, bro? I mean, he's really aggressive. And he's wearing a full-body tattoo, slingshot t-shirt. This is the way he's dressed at the airport with the teardrops. And I'm like, this guy's going to like kill me. But he's got these two beautiful little girls with him, and he's got this lady by his side. And I said to him, I don't remember you. And I thought he was going to hit me up for money. And he said to me, 15 years ago, you spoke on a prison panel, and something you said changed my life. These are my beautiful daughters. This is my amazing wife. We want to thank you. And there was that moment. And all of a sudden, the wife started crying. I mean, the faucet came on. She's crying. Now the little kids are crying. Now I'm crying. We're all crying. It's like so weird. Like a second ago, I didn't know whether to hit the guy or run. I'm not going to hit him because it's airport security, right? I want to get my flight. I've already thought that out. And now we're hugging like we're the long-lost family from the old country. I remember calling my sponsor. My sponsor's like, Adam, you got a big mouth and a good memory. Don't let it go to your head. Click. But if you're new, there are two dates in a human being's life. The day we're born and the day we find out why. All my life, I thought it was about money, property, and prestige. The job, the house, the girl, the car. The job, the house, different car, different job, bigger house, different girl, younger girl, different girl. Like this weird thing because we're taught that. Society tells us that. I never got the pat on my back from my dad. I never got that. But see, all my life I chased money, property, and prestige. And what AA is suggesting is I chase a spiritual life. And money, property, and prestige chase me. And all of a sudden, that regular old car becomes the greatest thing in the world. And that house, I love it. And my girl, I love. And, all of a sudden, success is getting what I want, but happiness, true joy is wanting what I have. That set-aside prayer, God help me set aside everything I think I know for an open mind and a new experience. It changed the way I looked at the world. Suddenly, I was able to see it from the eyes of a child. I can't explain all that to you. There's not enough time. But I'll tell you this. When I got out of that 28th residential treatment center, the guy that was running the detox said, Adam, why don't you come back to our lovely hospital next week and tell everyone here how you stayed sober an entire week, if you can make it. And then he threw me off the property. So much he really cared. And I was so mad at him. I was so, we're sensitive, right? So pissed at this guy that for the next 8.5 years, I sat in 2 hours of bumper-to-bumper traffic from South LA County to the West Valley to tell a bunch of strangers in the detox that didn't care, like tonight, how I stayed sober another week. And guess what? I was tricked into service. It never occurred to me for all the years that I'd fought and suffered with untreated alcoholism, right? It's because I wasn't willing to give anything. It never occurred to me when Bill Wilson got out of that third treatment center in Towns Hospital. He said it. He goes, he was a broken man. He was overcome with waves of depression. He'd lost everything in life worthwhile. And Bill got a real simple idea. Maybe if I go back in the hospital and talk to some of the patients, I'll feel better. That's all it was. And he calls Silkworth. We all know Silkworth was a double board certified physician in psychiatry and neurology. He was the chief physician in New York at that time that treated alcoholism. Trust fund babies from all over, just like today, the Rehab Riviera. Back then it was in New York, and they would all go to see Silkworth. And Silkworth says it. Read it. It says, with all our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach, we're not well equipped. He couldn't fix us. They can't fix you. Haven't you figured it out yet? They can fix the hard drinker. They can't fix people like us. So he knew it, and he said to Bill, he goes, yeah, come in, try it. And what Bill witnessed from 1935 to 1939, Silkworth said was absolutely amazing. He almost threw away his career to endorse the big book. You see it where it says, it's right there. It says you can absolutely rely on anything these men say about themselves. That was a letter of credibility given to Bill Wilson by a double board certified physician on the Towns Hospital letterhead with his phone number on it. Do you know how much faith he must have had in Bill? And I'll finish with this. You know what Bill knew? So little. It's all on page 13 and 14 of the big book. Ebby had come to him and taken Bill through a very simple process. Surrender, catharsis, restitution, and service. But it was so powerful. Did you like your drinks and drugs watered down? Why would you want your AA watered down? The book is still there and it's an original content. He took him through a process. Abby actually wrote Bill's four-step. You can see it on page 13 where it says, we made a list of people with whom I was angry and who I had harmed. People in this room right now know more about this thing than Bill ever knew. But Bill had something very powerful. He had a servant's heart. That's what he had. See, there's two kinds of people on earth. There's guests and there's hosts. The guest is never happy. There's no onions on my burger. I don't like my rent-a-car. I can't believe I have to do chores when my mommy paid so much. I can't believe what you got me for my birthday. Come on, we've all heard that shit, right? Come on. But see, the host comes at life totally different. The host is like, how can I be helpful? How can I be kind? How can I help you? The host is having all the fun. I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Wow, that was great. Thank you so much for sharing.